In at number 10, early fame. James Corden revealed that he had to actually have therapy to stop being a brat after he became intoxicated by fame for the first time. Even as Gavin and Stacey co-star Rob Brydon had to step in and tell him off for his rude behavior while on set. Rob recalls saying, "Look, this is a bit awkward to say, but I'm just hearing these things about you, and you've got to know that the way you behave has an effect on people." Which is bizarre because the whole reason that he wrote this show for himself to, star in was because that he was sick and tired of people being rude to him over his weight and many other things. So to just turn around and be rude didn't really make sense. In at number 9, fake driving. Once transitioning from comedic actor to late night host, James had to come up with some new games that would keep his audience interested. It's a simple concept, but something that is at the very least relatable to most audiences, other than having a giant celebrity in your passenger seat, that is. Well, it turns out that the whole thing is a sham and a cheap way to trick their audience. A tweet went viral showing that James Corden doesn't actually drive the vehicle during the show, but rather has it being pulled around on a trailer.
They're doing carpool karaoke.
That is so funny.
Hey, Bieber. Justin Bieber.
Oh my god.
And James Corden.
Ah, that's so great.
In at number 8, Fight Club.
The second rule of Late Late Show Fight Club is
James, the first and the second rule of Late Late Show Fight Club is I am not doing Late Late Show Fight Club. Okay?
Even though James Corden had an excellent opportunity to chat with Edward Norton, he ruined that chance by trying to do some weak comedic version of Fight Club, using his own writing staff. Right from the start, you can tell that Ed just doesn't want any part of this, and why would he? Fight Club was a great film, but it's one of the many that the actor has been a part of. Plus, he was there trying to promote a new movie, so why waste time on something like this? Although James still isn't getting it until Norton tells him that there are better ways of expressing masculinity. All the guy wants to do is talk about his film Motherless Brooklyn, which he not only starred in but also directed and wrote. But no, James wants a Fight Club parody sketch. Okay, what a waste of a guest. In at number 7, against his writers. When James Corden decided to do an Ask Me Anything on Reddit, it could not have backfired any worse. One of his producers named Jack Allison had made a tweet in regards to how poorly James had treated his writing staff, which was included in the litany of complaints made against the host. Jack tweeted, "I'd like to state once again for the record that I went to a WGA meeting for only late night writers, and James Corden showed up without any of his staffers to advocate for a lower pay grade for late night writers." Now, James tried to refute his point, but honestly, his Twitter replies aren't even worth showing here. He basically called his own producer a liar and stated that he cared about his writers while simultaneously arguing for lower pay at the Writers Guild of America meeting. In at number 6, distracted hosting. While hosting the Glamour Woman of the Year Awards, James got himself into a now famous argument with Patrick Stewart. Apparently, while hosting, he looked completely disinterested, and many felt that he gave off an attitude like he was better than the event. Plus, while recipients were accepting their awards, there was James just standing off to the side texting during a live award show. So when Patrick Stewart came on stage, he decided to confront James over his rude behavior. But because some people hadn't noticed what James was doing, Patrick seemed to be the rude one in this interaction. Although in retrospect, he was a hero ahead of his time. Take a look at this awkward exchange and keep in mind that this was 10 years ago.
No, seriously, go on.
Okay.
No, go on. You can see my belly, and we can all see you dying right now. Let's go for it. Here we go.
Patrick was simply trying to tell James not to text while people are accepting their awards, and instead of apologizing, he got in Patrick Stewart's face. Like, what was he gonna do? Fight him? Because he asked you to have common sense? Bit rude? In at number 5, unrelatable. James Corden decided it was his duty to stand up for every overweight person in the world in defending their right to eat when Bill Maher said that we should bring back fat shaming. And judging by the way Corden responded to this clip, you would think that Bill called him out specifically. He didn't though. James is just that easily offended and has a bigger platform to cry on than most people. The point Bill was trying to make was a comedic one that missed the mark, but he was emphasizing that America needs to bring back shame, which it does. We should all have a little bit of shame, in fact. James tried to make this his champion moment of being the king of all that is good in the world, but started to lose people when he continuously made it about himself. He kept saying, "This hurt me because I wanted to be in movie roles but was too out of shape. His remarks hurt me because I was never accepted by society." But there he is sitting behind a late night show desk, no problem. Also, in my humble opinion, if he didn't feel some shame about the way that he looked, James would have probably never been motivated enough to create his own show, Gavin and Stacey. He's trying too hard to be a fake idol by making his audience believe that he's offended by remarks that have nothing to do with him. Literally nothing to do with him. In at number 4, joked about assault. Right around the time that people like Rose McGowan and other accusers started stepping up and calling out Harvey Weinstein for his egregious behavior, James thought it would be fun to joke about it. Due to James Corden being a comedic actor and not a stand-up comedian, his jokes had absolutely no legs or timing. As a result, the audiences mostly groaned uncomfortably about the extremely graphic and too soon material that was clearly not well suited for a charity event. After the immense backlash, James tweeted, "To be clear, sexual assault is no laughing matter. I was not trying to make light of Harvey's inexcusable behavior, but to shame him, the abuser, not his victims. I am truly sorry for anyone offended. That was never my intention." Oh, so now shaming is okay, just as long as it's not happening to you. Another Italian actor named Asia Argento, who alleges that Weinstein sexually assaulted her when she was 21, tweeted a video of Corden's joke and added the caption, "Shame on this pig and everyone who grunted with him." I'm sorry if I mispronounced your last name. In number 3, political harassment. While filming a segment on his show called Spill Your Guts, James was asked a very specific question about what happened when he saw Ivanka Trump at a wedding. James admitted that he was very drunk and continuously harassed the president's daughter at the wedding. He repeatedly told her that she needs to do something, which isn't exactly the place nor the time. Plus, who does James Corden think he is? He wasn't born in America. He came there so that he could make more money. So why does he feel this entitlement to trash the country that accepted him? Plus, harassing the president's daughter while at a wedding, while drunk, is perhaps the biggest indicator that James has no self-awareness.
But I remember that we were quite drunk and we started going, "Ivanka, you can do something. You can make a difference." I remember Ivanka was going, "I'm trying."
In at number 2, hates his fans. Going back to that disastrous Reddit Ask Me Anything post that he made, we have countless people who were once fans of James claiming negative interactions with the host. One Redditor mentioned the time that he saw James Corden filming the UK game show A League of Their Own, and while other stars were polite and engaged with fans, Corden couldn't have cared less. It's a bit of a long post, so I'll just point out the most egregious examples. The Redditor writes, "James came in for a brief moment, someone asked politely for a quick picture, and he abruptly said later, and then left to his changing room for the rest of the night," which means they never got the photo. Then they closed it off by saying, "Seeing him like that made me realize everything you see of his on TV is a complete persona, and really his natural personality is just a complete self-entitled," and that's a word that I'm not allowed to say on YouTube. So, but you get the point. You get the point. I'm not gonna say that word. It's a bad one. Last but certainly not least on our number 1 spot, Happy Mother's Day. Then there was this crazy airplane story involving a woman and a baby. There's for sure no way to verify whether or not the story is true, but it does seem pretty much in line with what others have been saying about the late night host. Apparently a woman with her crying baby was sat next to James Corden on a flight, but to many people's surprise, James didn't complain. He simply put in his noise-canceling headphones and pulled a mask over his eyes, then turned away from the woman to sleep. However, when the plane landed, Corden remained in his seat as the woman with the baby struggled to open her overhead compartment. What makes the story even worse is that the woman then turned to James and asked him to at least hold the baby while she was getting the bags down. Turns out that woman was his wife, and that baby was his baby. In at number 10, Nick Cannon. Nick Cannon decided enough was enough when images of Jimmy Fallon wearing blackface began to resurface. The main photo going around showed Jimmy dressed as comedian Chris Rock for what was an old Saturday Night Live sketch. Jimmy has since apologized, but not everyone was ready to accept that apology. Nick Cannon then posted a collage of Fallon, Jimmy Kimmel, and Sarah Silverman all in blackface as he wished everyone a happy Blackface History Month. He then went on to tag all of them in another post as he begged the question, "Are these your kings of late night?" Oh, and by tag them in a post, I mean he literally tagged their Instagram handles to further that conversation. In a final message about Jimmy Fallon, Nick Cannon had this to say, "You know, I'm always on the side of the comedian and never pander to the sensitive, but I feel there needs to be some truth and reconciliation discussions and teachable moments amongst our communities." But before we get into our next point though, make sure to smash that like button because it really helps us out here on the channel. In at number 9, Tracy Morgan. Back in 2007, Vulture magazine did a full story called "Tracy Morgan Hates Jimmy Fallon Just as Much as You Do." And in that article, they have quoted Tracy Morgan as he discussed what it was like to work with Fallon on Saturday Night Live. In the quote, Tracy said, "Laughing and all that dumb shit he used to do, he wouldn't mess with me because I didn't f***ing play that shit. That's taking all the attention off of everybody else and putting it on you. Like, oh, look at me, I'm the cute one. I told him not to do that in my sketches, so he never did." Some people may have viewed Jimmy's laughter as a sign of nervousness, or perhaps he thought the sketch was just so funny that he couldn't keep a straight face. However, with this direct quote from someone who worked alongside him, it's become clear that the laughter is more for attention than anything else. I mean, we can't fault him for wanting more attention on a show that is widely known to be super competitive within their own ranks. The stories about Saturday Saturday Night Live cast members backstabbing each other to get their sketches on air is endless. And it turns out Tracy Morgan wasn't about to have Jimmy steal any of his spotlight. In at number 8, Shawn Mendes. So far, singer Shawn Mendes has had 2 appearances on The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, and we're not sure why. Nothing against Shawn, but that first appearance was very awkward. Shawn first appeared on the show back in 2016 and came on to help Jimmy with singing songs on the spot. Unfortunately for Shawn, Jimmy gave him a late cue to start singing, which made Mendes look extremely unprofessional and completely out of his element. Even though that wasn't the reality, it certainly came off that way. In at number 7, Banks. How excited would you be if you were a musician and then suddenly you heard your song being played on a late night talk show? Sounds like a dream come true, right? Well, for the South Sudanese born rapper named Banks, it was his biggest nightmare. Banks became well known, especially in Australia, for his viral hits such as Take You to the Movies and Meet Me on Facebook. However, it was his song Take You to the Movies that received a rather unflattering review from one Jimmy Fallon. In a segment called Do Not Play, Fallon ridiculed Banks for the song and even mocked his performance by mimicking him. In response to this, Jimmy made a new enemy in Australia, and Banks put out a Jimmy Fallon diss track called Do Not Watch. In at number 6, Don Rickles. Comedian Don Rickles was an absolute legend, famous for being able to humiliate an entire room of people just by himself. Doesn't sound that impressive, but writing good roast jokes can be very difficult, and this man was able to think of them on the spot and deliver it with ease. This moment he has with Jimmy Fallon can be very telling though, as Don Rickles showers Jimmy with compliments before arriving at the conclusion that he has never liked the late night host. Rickles has been appearing on The Tonight Show since Fallon was in diapers, so the moment that he was on the show, he took complete control and warned us that Fallon carrying on the show may have been a bad idea. He said he was great at impressions, but then mocked the size of the audience, and this was pre-COVID. He also mentioned that Jimmy should enjoy the show while he has it because it's probably not gonna last. In at number 5, Ricky Gervais. Comedian Ricky Gervais has never been one to conceal his true thoughts about someone, and this has become made expressly clear when he hosted the Golden Globes. In his opening monologue, he tore into nearly every massive celebrity in attendance. Even after all of the backlash that he received, he was still welcomed as a guest on The Tonight Show. Although as soon as Ricky sat down, he began to argue with Jimmy over comments regarding his appearance. Ricky Gervais then goes into a 4.5-minute rant about everything wrong with what Jimmy just said. It just gets so heated that Jimmy even turns to his production team for help after Ricky swears live on air. In at number 4, Samantha Bee. Samantha Bee is a comedian and political commentator that used her show called Full Frontal with Samantha Bee to further discuss her opinions and views on the world. So when Jimmy had on President Donald Trump, it came to no surprise that Samantha Bee was going to have some strongly worded opinions. When Jimmy had Trump on his show, he created one of the most memorable and perhaps controversial moments in late night history. With the president sitting beside the desk, he leaned over and ruffled his hair. This was highly criticized by many other late night hosts as being too jovial. Samantha's issue with this interview conducted by Fallon was that it should have never even happened. In at number 3, Horatio Sanz. It's no question that being a celebrity or being in the Hollywood spotlight definitely comes with a lot of pressure. Many people eventually succumb to some type of addiction issue as a way to cope with this. Horatio, who worked with Fallon back in the day on Saturday Night Live, slipped up during an interview with Vulture magazine. Because the pair had worked together for many years, they grew to become pretty close friends. Although Horatio admitted that every person who worked on SNL had some kind of illegal substance addiction or drinking problem. He continued by saying that comedians on the show would often find themselves needing to blow off steam, and it wasn't long before people started connecting the dots between that statement and Jimmy Fallon. It had been long rumored that Jimmy may have had a drinking problem as well, but the network, both for SNL and The Tonight Show, did their very best to perfect his image. This also makes a previous story about Fallon getting into a bar fight make a lot more sense. Horatio continued to talk about past alleged fights, including one where Jimmy supposedly poured a drink into someone's hat. Horatio claims that when the guy tried to confront Jimmy Fallon, he reportedly ended up on the floor. In at number 2, Roger Waters. For those of you who don't know, Roger Waters along with musician Syd Barrett are the founding members of the legendary rock band called Pink Floyd. The pair played together for many years before Syd eventually left the band. Although his diagnosis was never made official, many speculated that Syd Barrett could have been suffering from schizophrenia. In addition to his mental illness going unchecked, he was also experimenting heavily with psychedelics, which certainly impacted the music that Pink Floyd had created. However, Syd's brain chemistry did not bode well with mixing these drugs with his already distraught state of mind. When discussing this on The Tonight Show, you can visibly see Roger begin to get uncomfortable. Like, you can tell that even this long after Syd's passing, it never gets easier for him to talk about. Now, the part where he inadvertently warns us about Jimmy Fallon is how Jimmy responds to this emotion. Instead of matching his energy and being more gentle with the conversation, Jimmy catapults himself out of the uncomfortable zone and immediately begins to try and crack jokes, which lands us at this awkward departure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I can't wait to see you, and I'll be at every show screaming. I'll be waving at you, and you'll be ignoring me. But anyways.
Last but certainly not least, on our number 1 spot, John Oliver. Many late night hosts have learned over the years that they're not really competition, but rather colleagues colleagues working in a similar field. This, however, does not mean that they are beyond criticizing the others' interviewing techniques. John Oliver, for example, hosts his own show called Last Week Tonight that has grown to become a big success in its own right. Even though John has his own show, he did appear as a guest on The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon. However, things got off to a very awkward start. After Jimmy remarked at his love for the name of John's show, John Oliver thought that his comment was weak, pun intended maybe, but the worst part was that it did not get better from here. Oliver outright said that this strange, out-of-nowhere compliment comes as a result of Jimmy Fallon's awful interviewing skills.
Kicking off our countdown at number 10 is Mariah Carey. The two ladies have had a friendship for many years, but there was a moment in their friendship where Ellen's humor proved to go too far. The big debate with comedians is, are their jokes funny or are they actually mean? Mariah believes that this one was a bit mean, but she did handle it well despite the fact. What happened was she went on Ellen's show to do an interview, and Ellen brought up the rumors that were going around at the time that Mariah might be pregnant. Right away, Mariah says, "Let's not talk about that." But then Ellen takes out 2 glasses of champagne and tries to force her to drink it to prove that she's not pregnant. Mariah is hesitant, and it might be because she was in her early stages of pregnancy at the time, and oftentimes females don't want to reveal it because in the first trimester, miscarriages are common. Sadly, Mariah did have a miscarriage and revealed the news later down the road. I personally watched this video and I did not find it funny. I feel like forcing someone to drink alcohol to prove if they're pregnant or not, like, I get the joke, but probably not a good one, Ellen. Up next, number 9 is Dakota Johnson. Back in 2019, the actress sparked a fire on the internet after she went on the Ellen show for an interview. The two of them have had this ongoing debate on whether or not Ellen has been invited to Dakota's birthday parties. In 2018, Dakota admits that she didn't invite Ellen because she didn't know that she would want to be invited. So she invited Ellen in 2019, but Ellen didn't show up and gave no explanation. But when Dakota went on her show, Ellen called her out and said that she didn't invite her to her birthday party again. The tension was super awkward to watch, I'm not gonna lie. And Dakota says, "Actually, no, that's not the truth, Ellen. Ask everybody. Ask Jonathan, your producer." Ellen's producer live ends up confirming that she was invited and didn't go. You can tell that Dakota was not taking Ellen's this time and was making sure that everyone knew that she was invited. Not sure why Ellen was trying to make it look like she wasn't, but the whole thing was super, super awkward. Like, I wish they could have just removed that whole part from the interview. Swiping the number 8 spot is Mark Ruffalo. You're probably wondering what the hell kind of beef he has with Ellen. It all just seems very random, not gonna lie, and it kind of is. Remember when the world went into a frenzy because Ellen was sitting with George Bush at a Dallas Cowboys game? She received a ton of hate for it, but did a monologue on her show where she said that they are friends despite their different beliefs. Like she always does, she spoke about kindness and said that she chooses to be kind to everyone. But Mark didn't agree with that and let his feelings out in a tweet. He wrote, "Sorry, until George W. Bush is brought to justice for the crimes of the Iraq War, including American-led torture, Iraqi deaths and displacement, and the deep scars, emotional and otherwise, inflicted on our military that served his folly, we can't even begin to talk about kindness." Clearly, he does not agree with Ellen's decision on who she chooses to have in her friend circle. Rolling into number 7 is Kelly Ripa. She was one half of the morning show's favorite couples. Her and Michael Strahm were co-hosting Live with Kelly and Michael from 2012 to 2016. But then Michael suddenly announced that he was leaving the show to join ABC's Good Morning America, and his relationship with Kelly began to crumble. Most hosts decided to remain neutral on the conflict, but Ellen invited him on her show, which hurt Kelly's feelings. A source said that Kelly was livid and said, I quote, "Cozying up with Michael was like telling the world she had taken his side and she was taunting Kelly." People had different opinions on the situation though. Some believe that Ellen's decision wasn't intentional, while others thought that she knew what kind of outcome would come from it. Moving on to number 6 is Kathy Griffin. Alright, so they've had drama for a while now apparently. It's been an ongoing feud and it all comes down to whose side of the story you will believe. In 2016, she published a tell-all book called Kathy Griffin's Celebrity Run-Ins, My A to Z Index. In the book, she dished out dirt on about more than 100 celebrities, and Ellen was one of them. She wrote, "I'm almost positive a certain beloved daytime talk show host once had me kicked out of a backstage dressing room at the Emmy Awards. I can't prove it, but this person, who has short blonde hair, has a mean cheating streak that all of Hollywood knows about. But Ellen denies the story and says that Kathy is the mean one. Rumors were claiming that Ellen banned her from her show, but Ellen spoke about it during the interview and said, "I didn't ban her from the show because first you have to be on the show to be banned." Shots fired. Ellen is sassy. Halfway into our list, number 5 is Caitlyn Jenner. Back in 2015, Caitlyn went on Ellen's show and made a shocking confession, or so it seemed. During her interview, Ellen asked her what her stance was on same-sex marriage, and she said that there was a time that she did not support it. Ellen fired back at her immediately and made it seem like she wasn't supportive of the LGBTQ community. And then, after the interview, Ellen took shots at Caitlyn while talking on the Howard Stern show. She said she was unfairly passing judgment about gay people and marriage. But it turns out that that wasn't the case, and Caitlyn was not happy that she was trying to paint her in that light. Caitlyn opened up about the full story and said that she had actually talked to Ellen on the phone prior to taping the interview and convinced her to discuss her shifting stance on marriage equality. But then Ellen kind of flipped the switch on her during the interview and made it sound like she was against it. That all does seem pretty sketchy. And at number 4 is Joan Rivers. The icon has passed away and is not able to speak on her side of the story anymore, but Kathy Griffin chose to tell it, which is also one of the reasons that her and Ellen still aren't very friendly with each other. Kathy opened up to Variety and said, "One of the things that really hurt Joan, and we talked about it at our last meal together, was that Ellen always shunned her and Ellen thought she was vulgar and not funny." Apparently, despite all of their drama, Kathy still reached out to Ellen to check if she was going to do a tribute for Joan after she died in 2014, but claims said that Ellen did not want to. Kathy finished her story by saying that she wished Ellen would have celebrated her more because she has such an incredible platform, and Joan was the one who broke the glass ceiling for women talk show hosts. So she should have gave like a really nice tribute to her, is what most people believe. Coming into number 3 is Nikki Tutorials. The YouTuber went on Ellen's show for an interview earlier this year and was quick to go on the internet and start sharing how bad her experience was. Like Ellen, Nikki's also a big influence in the LGBTQ community after coming out as transgender on her channel. Before her interview, she gushed online about how excited she was to go on the show because she was a big fan of hers. But after the airing, she said that Ellen didn't even say hi to her before going on stage and said that the whole experience just felt very cold and distant. She also admitted that she didn't even have a place to go to the bathroom, claiming that the closest bathroom to her was reserved for the Jonas Brothers and that she was not allowed to use it. I feel like that's kind of illegal. Where was she going to the bathroom then? Swiping the number 2 spot is Susan Sarandon. She too did not agree with Ellen's speech about being friends with George W. Bush. When Ellen spoke about the controversy on her show, she said, "I have friends who don't think the same things that I do. When I say be kind to one another, I don't mean only the people who think the same way you do. I mean be kind to everyone." Susan tweeted a response and posted a quote from Out magazine saying, "But missing the point entirely, DeGeneres framed the issues as simply a matter of her hanging out with someone with different opinions, not a man repeatedly accused of being a war criminal." Clearly, I just think that everyone's gonna have their own opinion on that situation. If Ellen can pick and choose if she's friends with George Bush or if she's not. Yeah, I feel like that everyone's gonna have a different opinion on that. And I'm gonna keep mine to myself. In the number 1 spot is Kevin T. Porter. You know things are bad when a comedian offers donations online in exchange for stories about Ellen being one of the meanest people alive. His words, not mine. That is right. Kevin tweeted out that he would donate to Los Angeles Regional Food Bank if people would share a story when Ellen was mean to them. He quickly got over 2,000 replies with people sharing stories of her being rude. He was wanting to show everyone that Ellen is not what she appears to be and thought if people could see all of these stories at once, it would help shed some light on that. He was exchanging $2 for every story, but then it got hard to tell which stories were real or not, so he just donated $600 and then attached the screenshot of his receipt. So he actually did donate the money. However, I feel like you are going above and beyond to try and expose someone for being mean. And isn't that kind of mean?